All right. Um, Hello, everyone, and welcome to our panel on growth, scarcity, circular economy, and what Gen Zs can do about it. My name is Nicolau Barros, and I will be your moderator for this panel. I'm joined by my colleagues, Scott Jenkins, the CEO and co-founder of ZS2 Technologies, Jean-Philippe Mai, President and CEO of Dundee Sustainable Technologies, and Malcolm Shang, Global Head of Mine Closure, Reclamation, and Circular Economy at ArcelorMittal Mining. So I come to you from Burloo, which is Noongar for Perth, where I live here in Western Australia. So I would like to start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation as the traditional custodians of this country and its waters, and that is a privilege for me to stand on Noongar country. I pay my respects to Noongar elders past, present, and emerging. And I would also like to join my colleagues online in acknowledging the land on which Brock University was built, where this forum is hosted, which is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada treaties, and it is within the land protected by the Dish with one spoon, one poon agreement. This acknowledgement reminds us that the simple fact that we're gathered here today is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous peoples everywhere. So to introduce the topic of our panel and help frame our discussions, I would like to present you with some thought-provoking ideas which speak to the very nature of the business which I represent, Regeneration Enterprises. So what if we could extract metals from mine waste to produce responsible minerals for sustainable brands and the green energy transition? So earnings from this activity would then be used to help fund restoration of nature and bring closure to communities. So to achieve a climate reduction target of 2 degrees Celsius, we'll need over 3 billion tons of minerals for batteries, wind and solar, and other technologies critical to the energy transition. Well, our solution is found in a surprising place, degraded mining lands. Regeneration enables biodiversity, community, and climate positive minerals for the energy transition, green tech, and sustainable brands through remining, reprocessing, and restoration. So we can meet this goal. We can produce responsible minerals while safeguarding communities and protecting biodiversity. Regeneration is an energy transition startup and a public benefit company. We're scouting sites and technologies globally, and we engage communities, support policy innovation, and build partnerships with local businesses. At our sites, we produce metals, nature-based and climate solutions, decrease site liabilities, and improve community benefits. Our investors and backers include Resolve, Apple, Rio Tinto, Majuri, Paul Hastings, and others. So we're on to something here. I guess with that, then I'll get started by prompting my colleagues here for a discussion that will then explore the topic in a number of different perspectives, including their own from their organizations as well. So I guess I'll start with one about the role that we play in the mining industry relatively to the circular economy and where we're at in this journey right now. So who wants to jump in first?
Why don't I jump in first, Nicolau? So one, thanks for hosting this. Thanks to everyone involved with LIAMforum. I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, which would be the traditional lands of the Treaty 7 First Nations and the Métis Nation of Southern Alberta. So I also want to recognize those that went before us and respect that, especially with this discussion today, it's important for us to recognize those peoples. From ZS2's perspective, and what we're trying to do in this discussion today with Malcolm and Jean-Philippe and yourself, we're focused on using what would traditionally be waste streams in the mining, extraction, resource industry, and using those critical minerals for really the creation of low carbon or potentially even carbon neutral or negative construction solutions. The construction industry itself is also one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gases. But as you mentioned, we're going to need, one of the world's largest industries, resource extraction, to continue to invest significantly on new technologies. And obviously, our young team members here at ZS2, they're really driving that path forward. So, it really is, we have such a large role, I know all of us and all of the companies we're involved with, to play as we need to address the challenges of climate change.
That's great. I'll step in here and give a bit of a broader perspective in terms of not just the mining industry, but the mining and metals industry. So for those of you who don't know, ArcelorMittal is one of the largest integrated steel manufacturers in the world. So we partake in both the upstream part of the value chain in terms of mining, as well as the producing of steel further downstream. And we've taken the circularity concept and actually embedded it into our overall company strategy. So we're doing a lot of work on the steel side, and we're very far advanced with that. There's some wonderful examples. I encourage everyone to Google them and have a look. One example I'd love to talk about is essentially as part of the steel making process, some carbon emissions are created, and our company, as well as our partner LanzaTech, created a way to actually capture that those carbon emissions, and actually turn them into bioethanol using a biological process. From that bioethanol, there's several different products that can be created, and it really speaks to that circularity concept. We've also looked on the steel side and used slag for things like fertilizer, also in the construction industry. And now we're trying to take some of those same sort of perspectives and paradigms and apply it to mining. And Scott mentioned in terms of construction materials, I think there's a big opportunity there in terms of use for materials such as silica, quartz, etc., that really aren't seen as the valuable piece within the mine waste. Nicolau, I know you mentioned in terms of precious metals, or not precious metals, but critical minerals and metals for the energy transition. The other piece to that is the other minerals and metals that really aren't part of that energy transition, but are just as important if we are actually going to make a positive impact and also remediate the land. So we're trying to look at it in different ways. The mine waste stream is the one area we're trying to focus on right now. But in terms of circularity, there's so many other aspects we can look at: water, energy. It's really this lovely broad concept that can positively affect the mining industry and the integrated steel industry and other industries by its application. I will leave you with this, though. There was a company, Anglo-American, which coined this term. I think it must be over a decade ago now, but they spoke about the potential for mining companies or primary extractors to eventually evolve to material service providers. And when you start looking at things through that paradigm, I think it sort of changes the way you can envision industries like the mining industry evolving and becoming.
That's certainly interesting, and appreciate the perspective you two brought into this. Jean-Philippe, anything you would like to add to that initial question?
Yeah, no, of course. Well, first of all, thank you very much for introducing the topic, Nicolau, and for my panelists or colleague to set the table as well as you did. So thank you very much. So I'm speaking to you all here, and I'm currently located in Thetford Mines, Quebec. Alors, je prends une petite minute pour vous dire bonjour en français et pour vous laisser savoir qu'on est complètement bilingue dans notre compagnie. Alors, c'est une autre façon de souhaiter la bienvenue de notre endroit. Alors, so I just wanted to first introduce our company. I'm here representing Dundee Sustainable Technologies. We are a novel metallurgical process developer and provider. We are a rather small team of about 30 people, mostly technically oriented, and coming from an R&D background, and now going towards an implementation of our process. We've really been active in the mining industry at developing novel metallurgical processes which address problematics and challenges which our industry have been facing for decades. And these are both environmental and metallurgical challenges. So providing and developing novel metallurgical processes which can provide an innovative approach to the treatment of mineral. And when I refer to innovation, I think innovation needs to be both environmentally compliant as well as efficient in terms of cost and in terms of operations. So our point of view here, at Dundee is really to look at providing efficient processing approach, which really can be novel tools for the mining industry to have better ESG compliant measures, as well as properly recovering and some of the metals and some of the operations that are being operated. And in that fashion, we're getting closer to our end goal to achieving a net zero approach and to having a circular approach to some of the projects being developed. So be happy as part of the panels here to share some of our expertise, the long and difficult road to bringing new novel technologies to our industries, the challenge, the benefits, and some of the positive tractions that we're getting as we're now moving to commercial implementations on sites in Africa. So yeah, happy to take part of this discussion. So thank you, Nicolau, for leading us.
Well, thanks, everyone, and I appreciate that. And I really do appreciate the perspectives that we're bringing here now, particularly if I go from the back to front, similar to what you're talking about there, Jean-Philippe, and that's sort of the partnerships that Regeneration is looking for in identifying potential opportunities for a significant uplift in environmental restoration coupled with remining and reprocessing. That is by looking at innovative technologies that can be used to extract metals. But I think that Malcolm and Scott are also talking about everything else that needs to happen in order to enable this, because not only we need a whole lot of minerals, but we will need to build infrastructure in order to enable fabrication, in order to enable manufacturing in general, that will actually lead to the expedition, right, of the electrification process that we find ourselves in right now. So thinking about that, and we've spoken about innovation, we've spoken about where we sort of are right now, you know, the capabilities built, the capabilities developed, and a bit of a vision as well. But where do you guys see us now relatively to where we need to be? And perhaps where should we be in that journey right now?
Can I just, sorry guys, I'll just jump in here because I have a thought when you're just mentioning our needs for metals. And I think this is all clear and none of these are being debated. And as to where we are and where we need to be, I think we should ask ourselves the questions: are we doing the best that we can and should today? Speaking of metals, are we recovering 100% of our efficiency in terms of metal recovery, right? Should we be satisfied as an industry with our metal recovery rates? And I think we should question ourselves as an industry, what is the standards which we should impose ourselves, which are just not economic. I mean, a ton of ore can only be mined once, so let's make sure that we get the full efficiency out of it in terms of metal extraction, and that in itself can simplify the downstream process of closing the loop in terms of having zero waste or being closer to a circular economy, having a more efficient approach to project. And that's from the overall, that's from the extraction phase, the handling phase, the logistics phase, as well as the extraction phase. So that's my short answer to your latest question on where we sit. I think we should have a proper assessment of our own criteria. Are we achieving, or are we as efficient as we would like to be or should be?
So if you don't mind, I'll step in now after Jean-Philippe. So Jean-Philippe touched on something interesting in terms of material efficiencies. And one concept I've been sort of thinking about and discussing more broadly recently is more holistic sort of minerals extraction when we mine. And the concept very simply stems from the existing mining industry right now, where miners are typically very focused on specific commodities, and they don't actually spend a lot of time characterizing and also exploring other potential value uses, whether it's monetary value or just societal value from the inverted commas waste portion of the ore body. And I sort of wonder if where we eventually go is some sort of more holistic extraction of those minerals, because very simply mining, we're taking a piece of rock out the ground essentially, and we're valorizing right now only a small portion of it. Is the solution not to look at a more holistic extraction and use, more importantly, of all the materials that we actually bring out the ground? How that looks, I'm not too sure yet, but I sort of wonder if that's where we eventually go. In terms of where we are now, Nicolau, I think the industry is being asked to change very quickly because there are definitely real and pressing needs, but we haven't been used to having to change this quickly. And it really puts us in a very interesting and important time for the industry, which I think the LIAMforum speaks to very well, because we need new innovative ideas, we need new approaches, we need new energy coming to the sector to help us meet this sudden and important demand, which again, like I said, is asking for the industry to change, which we haven't really had to do as much as we are being asked to now. And with that, I think there's a real opportunity for the gentleman on the panel, as well as other people, to be bringing different ideas, different perspectives to the table. I have another presentation next week on abandoned and orphan mines, and the topic's really about industrial ecology. And what I was trying to really get the message across in terms of that, and it applies here, is that sometimes innovation doesn't have to be technological. It can actually just be a different approach, like regeneration in terms of a business, or it could just be a different perspective from a different industry, such as Scott from a construction industry. And I think that sort of collaborative approach really will allow us to unlock some of these opportunities to hopefully evolve to, in my mind, this more holistic extraction and use of the materials we take out, which will also help reduce the environmental impact, improve our reputation as an industry, and then also contribute to the critical energy transition, or the clean energy transition, as well as to just the normal broader society demands.
So if I was to tie some of the comments from both Jean-Philippe and Malcolm together from my perspective, and really going back to the question, Nicolau, is from what I see technologies that do exist today and new ones being developed at the fastest pace we've ever seen in humankind or in human history, largely out of necessity, but also, really it's just the ability for us to collaborate. So that's truly amazing. The challenge, as Jean-Philippe sort of touched on a little bit, I think, is the economics. And if we use the analogy of the first electric cars, the first electric car is 1800s, but then was shelved for a while, then it came back. Those first electric car makers, and I won't reference the company that we're all thinking of right now, but that first car was pretty darn expensive for them to produce, right? And they sold it for a lot less than it cost them to produce that first one. But once economies of scale hit, then there's the opportunities to exist. Malcolm touched on these materials or other things in his work, going back to previous sites that may have valuable minerals, critical minerals that can be used. And where I think there's so much potential is for smaller companies, Jean-Philippe's company, my company, we're small, innovative, technically focused. And then we can partner, we can see value with what some of the larger companies have previously produced. And we can see it in whether it's tailings, off-spec mine production, other minerals that may be there, or novel sources, such as, a lot of folks are familiar with the extraction of lithium from salt water. What other minerals are in salt water and those opportunities? So I'm really quite optimistic in that the resource extraction industry is really becoming the frontier for clean technology. And it's not just Malcolm touched, it is the energy transition, but it's also our need for, the population of the world is growing. So not only do we need food supply, so it could be, in terms of regenerative farming, but in my particular case, it's building more resilient, lower carbon footprint structures for us to live and go to school in and work in. So to tie that together, I couldn't be more excited about the future actually right now and our ability to address the effects of climate change.
Yeah. So I think I heard a few interesting things there with regards to, well, first, the challenges are right in front of us and we need to take them very seriously. Back to Jean-Philippe's comments about, are we even aiming to recover? Are we getting satisfied? Are we finding that it's good enough to recover as much as we've been typically recovering of metals? But I'm also hearing we have made leaps and bounds of progress over the last little while, and there's more to be achieved. So with that in mind, and perhaps to try and illustrate and thinking about our audience here in terms of what they can see as in what's forefront in our minds with regards to that particular technology, what would you guys bring up now as one or two examples to illustrate what those opportunities are, or perhaps what the biggest challenges we're dealing with are that actually represent those chances, for the youth now to join in sciences and industry and help us out along this journey?
If I can start elaborate some sort of an answer, I think this ties in well with some of our previous discussion, and I understand your point, Malcolm, when you said that the industry is now needing to adapt quickly and is not used to adapt quickly and to implement changes. And I think, however, I think we've had a chance, we've had an opportunity for decades to catch up and to implement changes in technology. And now we need perhaps to be increase our exposure to risk by having to adopt technology now at a faster pace that we're used to. So, and that is a challenge, but is also an opportunity, to answer your question, Nicolau, because I think now the industry is more ready out of necessity and out of for the right reason, needs and is willing to incorporate more novel approaches, more technology within their existing projects and circuit. And that provides the opportunities for the young minds, the innovators, to come in and to challenge some of these paradigms and to bring new ideas, which will be listened to, which will be welcome, which will be tried, as everyone will need to step out of their comfort zone and increase their exposure to risks to be able to catch up to what the world is demanding in terms of metal demands, efficiency, ESG practices. So it is definitely a good time as the mining industry is in need, and it's listening to innovation and to new approaches that will be coming from the next generation.
I think Jean-Philippe summed that up well. And the one point in terms of the industry's listening, I think is important, because from what I can tell, the appetite is definitely there for any new technologies or ideas to essentially help us meet this new global demand in terms of not just for clean energy, but there's a sort of a regionalization going on in terms of supplying of minerals and metals. So there's definitely a lot of flux in the world right now, and we definitely need new ideas and new approaches to see how we can actually meet this not just present demand, but also future demand. I think just to highlight a couple of opportunities, Nicolau, I think decarbonization, there's a lot of opportunities in that sector. I know our company is spending a lot of money on that, especially on the steel making side, but also on the mining side. There's a lot of developments that are happening in those areas, which are very exciting for the youth to look into, if they're interested in that. On the circularity side, I'm quite happy to start seeing a lot more job titles out there speaking about that, and companies actually looking for that. which actually wasn't really a possibility or even a profession a few years ago, right? So this is just really speaking to the new challenges and problems that, like Jean-Philippe mentioned, not just in terms of mineral extraction and efficiency, but really ESG pressures now globally, environmental, social governance pressures to do things better. And just as a society, I think it seems like everyone wants to do things better now. So this is a real opportunity to partake in that. The last thing I'll mention is that there's just a very a large in general shortage in terms of stem candidates. Probably stem cell also links into that, but STEM candidates out there in the world in terms of science and engineering, and we need that supply of talent to be, I guess, built, so that not only can help us meet today's challenges, but also into the future.
Yeah, and I would echo the comments from both Malcolm and Jean-Philippe as well. From what we see with our strategic partners, is there are a tremendous amount of resources being dedicated to those big ideas. I think it was Jean-Philippe said, that we maybe need to look at taking more risk and investing in multiple big ideas. So, I think if I was younger, a lot younger, it would be an exciting time to join some of these companies that are going to empower the youth or their young team members, that have the technical background, are probably the most up to date on the latest and greatest technologies coming out of school, and probably are when people first come out of school, they're used to collaborating with their classmates and colleagues, and so they have that collaborative mentality already. So what an exciting time to then step into some of these established organizations that are changing course and taking bigger risks, and providing the resources necessary for people really to take some bold steps and see what changes or novel processes or new technologies can be developed, or what else might be out there. Like, I don't think there's a more exciting time for the industry, to be honest.
Yeah, this is great. What I'm hearing, I cannot help but think that we kind of see it a bit more positively, perhaps based on our experience and what we've seen. Also considering the path we are, and where we are on that path. Having started from, and it's been acknowledged here in this discussion already. Some of the sort of more innovative processes and solutions we've been seeing pop up these days weren't there not that long ago. So there's a bit of a steep incline in acceleration of innovation these days, and I can see the positiveness in how this panel here sees it. How can we translate that positiveness to our youth? And thinking about the audience here right now, there may be different stages of uptake and interest for the topics that we're covering, right? So there could be people about to embark on university. They could be early sort of university students. In any case, would there be specific examples you can think of, and maybe even drawing from your own experience? I think that would be an interesting way to look at it as well, in that we could see our youth these days draw some confidence in all of these different perspectives that we're helping share here today, and be positives themselves about it.
So maybe I can start on this question or this topic. I think for Jean-Philippe and I, we're both fortunate. We're located in Canada, where there are some significant programs available for STEM candidates and youth to work with organizations like ourselves that are innovators and pushing the limits. But ultimately, I guess my advice or comment for people that hopefully are listening in or participating in LIAMforum this week would be to be proactive, seek out organizations, because I have to say personally, as the CEO and founder of a couple companies now, There's nothing more that I like than receiving an email and, with someone who's done a little research on what we're doing and is very keen to learn more. That really is a great way for us to identify talented individuals that we could potentially work with or partner with.
That's great, Scott. Thank you.
I fully agree, Scott. And from our perspective, for the positive aspects is that we've just mentioned it in this discussion. Now is a great time to come in, as there's a stronger will and more resources to implement novel approaches and technology. And for us, this translates into projects that are moving forward. And projects in the mining industry are very motivating, because they could be halfway around the world. They could no two projects are the same. And for a smaller outfit like us, we all have to wear several hats. So for someone coming into the industry and being exposed to projects going forward, being implemented as an introduction to the mining industry, you get exposed to a lot of the different aspects of the mining cycle, whether it's from a corporate, a finance, a legal, logistics, a management, a technology, an operation, a cultural and environmental. We have people coming from various backgrounds that get to wear several hats and are involved in different parts of the project, which brings great exposure to the industry. And it also helps define maybe some of the interests that you don't know you might have when you're younger. You're at school, you enroll into a program, and then you end up doing maybe something differently. See, my example, I'm a geologist by trade. I started in exploration. I worked in operation, and yet I've been working in applied metallurgy for the past 10 years, and now running a publicly listed company and the stock exchange. I did not think I would be exposed to all that, in my first day of earth sciences in university. So there's a lot of different paths a career can take, and especially in this market. And there's a lot of companies like ours, which I hope we provide also a good and collaborative environment, as Scott mentioned. This is very important, and for us, when hiring and when talking to candidates, is how would they fit in our team, because that is so important to have someone that can fit, and then that person finds its own place and contributes in its own way to our development as a company.
So I think I'll just add on to Scott and Jean-Philippe's comments there. I think the biggest thing for me is right now, and there hasn't been an opportunity like this in the mining industry, where there is this real positive change going on in terms of how we are intending to do things, and it's coming from different sources. But the opportunity to do something that is tangibly impactful to the world, society, your local communities, perhaps, and also be involved in different ways. So I think the one thing that I would like to emphasize, and Jean-Philippe mentioned it, is that so mining is not just about, and mining and metals isn't just about engineering and sciences. It is also, we also need other talents and other people interested in other different things, whether it's finance, whether it's human resources or leadership in general, or even community relations, as I'm sure Nicolau and Regeneration can speak to. So the opportunity is there for anyone who wants to join, I guess, us on this journey to hopefully evolve to a more positively performing industry. And when I say that, I don't say that from a purely profit perspective, really the triple bottom line perspective, which is what I think we're all trying to move towards as an industry in terms of the three Ps they would always talk about: profit, planet, as well as people. And that's really where we're trying to improve the entire scorecard for the industry. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity right now to be part of that. Where to get started? I think do some research, take a personal interest in the problems of the greater world in terms of what we're dealing with right now, and if any of those problems really speak to you as a person, see how you can get involved. Reach out to different companies, network, volunteer. I think it's a wonderful way of exposing yourself to not just people in the industry or people from other industries trying to solve certain problems, but also getting a better understanding for the problems themselves and also the opportunities that that they present.
Thanks, gentlemen. I really appreciate that, and I like how we've sort of circled back to this point that was made earlier, I think by you as well, Malcolm, that you know, innovation is everywhere as well, which sort of evolves around kind of the main topic that we're talking about here. And we keep coming back to critical minerals, to mining, to use of waste and tailings and off-spec materials and everything that's associated to it as well. Yeah, absolutely. I think that Regeneration, for example, is a public benefit company. It does not maximize return to shareholder. It maximizes return to the restoration of the land. So thinking about everything from policy making through to restoration and how can we mine and process, thinking and having neatly embedded closure outcomes, expected closure outcomes into that is a pretty neat way to look at all of this. So, and I can see how you guys are all sort of connecting the dots for how you see that play an important role in everything that we're doing. I suppose one message that I'm kind of seeing implicit perhaps in what I'm seeing here is that while there is science and industry, geology, metallurgical engineering, mining and whatnot, there's also the other sciences, the other functions, the other interests that people might want to take in their careers that in one way or another will eventually associate to this, right? Sorry, any comments on that?
No, I think you've touched on a couple of things that we've all mentioned, but I do like that you mentioned the policy, Nicolau. It's not spoken about in terms of when you think about mining, but it's just as important, if not one of the key pieces in terms of, I guess, shaping the future of mining, right?
Yeah. Well, Nicolau, you know, you mentioned it for your organization. You're a for benefit organization. So I think what you're hopefully what the attendees are hearing today too is Malcolm, Jean-Philippe, myself, yourself, Nicolau, we're all thinking about stakeholders, not shareholders, right? And that's a much bigger umbrella. It's the communities we live in and we work in, and our children go to school, and it's the people that we interact with. And it's really this shift that I'm seeing throughout companies and various industries. And we definitely see that our young team members, that's very important to them, and it's inspiring.
Yeah, I agree. And just thinking out loud here about Malcolm, your 3 Ps, and Nicolau, your the mission of your company, responding more to the stakeholders than the shareholders. I think in the future there's definitely a room for our industry to rethink its financing approach. Financing is very difficult right now for all developers and for all mining projects. And yes, we've always considered stakeholders, communities, but always from a shareholder point of view. So in Canada and North America, we've been financing hockey arenas. Why not finance metal projects as a community, as a community owned project? So I'm thinking out loud here, but there's a lot of room to rethink the financing of critical metals, which we need, which can be supported by the communities, by the government, and provide a different outlet and a completely different project structure for the future. And that would be a real game changer in our industry, which has been very stable in the way that we've looked at developing and financing and putting project into production. But I think there's definitely room here for projects to emerge with completely different structures.
And I love that, Jean-Philippe. I actually was on a business trip recently, and in the car, I thought about something similar, driving through these little towns, and sort of thought from a mine closure perspective, and Nicolau, you'll appreciate this, is that what if, hypothetically, the communities in the area were actually shareholders? How would that drive actions during mining differently, and would the outcome be better? It's a fascinating thought experiment, but it's these types of ideas that I think the industry is ripe for, in terms of challenging the way we've done things in the past, and how we can potentially do things better in the future. I really believe, especially the younger generations, very value driven, are going to play a very important role, and rightly so, in terms of shaping our industry and other industries as well in the future.
Thanks, gentlemen. With almost 45 minutes into it, I just wanted to remember everyone, they can drop their questions into the Q&A function on the right side of your screen there for the in the hub screen. We've got a few questions coming up here. Yes, I'm definitely interested in how it all sort of come together in that way for us. I keep thinking about what Jean-Philippe was talking about in terms of the metal recovery. A lot of times when we're designing in the traditional ways, we're bound by what's technologically feasible, which is notionally what's economically feasible. And it's one of the things that I find quite compelling about our proposition, is that being a public benefit company, if we break even, we'll be fine type thing. So that kind of creates an opportunity for us to bring in innovative technology that might not actually be proven, but that we're provide with a sandbox for things to be trialed. So I definitely can see some of what you were talking about as well, Malcolm, as in how can a particular different drive in terms of how a mining organization, for example, is run, could drive to different results, right? So I have a few questions pop in the Q&A. Maybe I should start working on them. I'll start from up top, where we've got a couple of votes there for one of the questions. So apologies, I just lost it somehow. Okay, so what are some examples of trending circular technologies and / solutions seen in the mining industry today? So where we can be very, very specific to pinpoint a couple examples of circular technologies and solutions currently trending in the industry.
So I'll just speak to this question, Nicolau. So in terms of circularity within mining, it's actually been around a while in different forms, mainly because the mining industry has been very good at improving efficiencies. So if we think about the circular economy, the three principles: one is minimizing waste, the other one is keeping materials in the system longer, the third one is all about regeneration. So in terms of like minimizing waste, the industry, although it still has opportunities to improve, has been very good in terms of being more efficient in terms of extraction. Jean-Philippe could probably speak a bit more about this, but there's been a lot of work that's been invested there. In terms of circularity applied to mine waste, we're still at the early stages in terms of a lot of applications, but there's been a lot of research that has been done over the last, say, 10 or 20 years in terms of the trials and proof of concepts. I think it's only right now that the appetite has been there to actually really aggressively go after these, because there's been, unfortunately, some tragedies in terms of tailings dam failures over the last decade or so, which has really brought this to light and put a lot more emphasis on trying to minimize the risk associated with tailings. But in terms of Scott, in the construction industry, I know there's been a lot of trials by different companies in terms of using the I guess the forgotten minerals, if we can put it that way, from the mine waste into more productive uses within communities. I can't unfortunately speak to what we're doing, and we do have some programs on the go because it's all confidential, but I can say we're doing some exciting stuff that I wish and hopefully I can share in the near future. But it's also another opportunity right now to be involved in that space to try help move that forward. And Nicolau, you mentioned it before, but we're going to need a whole ecosystem built out around circularity if the mining industry and other industries are actually going to be able to implement. And that just simply is not there right now. So there's that wonderful opportunity. What I will say from a closure point of view, because circularity is not just about minerals and the materials in terms of streams, but in terms of post-closure land use, there's some wonderful examples out there. I'm trying to make sure that they're more generally well known, but some examples I just found out the other day that an old gold mine, a couple of them actually globally, that were underground mines are now being used for research to understand dark matter. Now, speaking against innovative approaches, again, this is a completely different industry that is now reusing an old waste product from mining, which is an old site, to now advance our understanding of the actual universe and the planet, which is incredible. And I think it's called the Sanford Research Institute, if you can have a look at it. There's one there in the US, I think it's in South Dakota. They've got some wonderful stats. I think in terms of their reuse of that mine site, they're actually estimating that in the next 10 years, a couple of $1 billion of economic benefit will be actually gained in the region from it. There's also some really interesting ideas in terms of some other mine sites for renewable energies that are looked at. So some mine sites are becoming reused as pumped hydro storage. So renewable energy on site, when that renewable energy isn't there, or if peak demand exceeds it, then essentially they can use the water from the two reservoirs from different pits to complement that demand. The last one I'll mention is there are some companies looking at old mine sites for basically new technology labs, which Scott and Jean-Philippe, you might be interested in. But these sites are essentially wonderful sandboxes, if you can think of it that way, to trial at a very low risk, but in real conditions, new technologies to prove them out, and then to be an incubator to essentially help the industry. So lots of interesting ideas out there. Again, I think we're at the very early phase, but I think there's a lot of opportunities to embed this into what we do.
I'll add something, if I could add something super quick. Check for the attendees. Also, check out XPRIZE and some of the new XPRIZE competitions that are out there. That will lead you to a tremendous amount of companies doing some amazing research and development and commercialization of things to
Agreed. I'll just add to that as well. I found out about it the other day. The Earthshot Prize, which is also quite prominent and well known.
Yep. Nicolau, I think I think we're out of time, and we need another panel to answer that question and talk more about circularity. But I'll just say that for us, process efficiency allows for circularity. So when you're properly processing, treating your contaminants, you end up with material which can be repurposed, and that tie in the loop for circularity. But we definitely need another panel to go in details and share some examples and some data here.
Yeah, we do have a couple other questions here, and perhaps 2 more minutes left, or 1.5. But in any case, one observation here is that on earlier LIAMforum panels, we saw the presence of women and men, not in this panel though. And we did touch on, it's a different type of question, but we did touch on this being our attempt to attract youth to the industry and sciences as related to this. So can anyone comment on the involvement of women in the organizations present on this panel? And perhaps that's a good way for us to close out as well.
Really quickly, for us, it's S2, my co-founder, Kristen Davis, partner, one of our leaders, has really been responsible for building our team. So she is the true leader of the organization.
I'll just mention to everyone interested in this topic that there are some organizations globally. I think one is called Women in Mining. for anyone who's interested in checking that out. But yes, there's a big drive right now to improve the balance, which is needed. And I think so. I'm based in Canada, but there's some wonderful opportunities, especially scholarships, etc., to encourage more diversity within STEM in general. But yes, it's a big topic for the industry, and we are making efforts to improve.
Yeah, and I can say the majority of the people in Regeneration are women. In fact, we have another panel here ran by two leaders in Regeneration, two ladies, my colleagues. Sorry, Jean-Philippe. One.
No, I was just going to say that, you know, we work with everyone, and we welcome all the applications that we can for every roles. We have women in operation, we have women in administration, in as chemists, as technicians. So, you know, to us, it's all about, you know, the personality, how that person, the energy that person brings to the team, and that's what's most important.
Well, thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone attending. I hope this was useful, and definitely a very intelligent conversation, and very useful for myself as well. I appreciate everyone's time and effort put into this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. If anyone wants to connect, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and provide guidance, or just to network and connect in general.
Yeah, likewise. And I believe that
Likewise.
Dundee Technologies has a virtual booth. So if you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on the web or through the platform. Okay.
Yeah, likewise. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of LIAMforum.